Okay, so we are going to go live, not live right now. Okay, Jan, I don't know if you've noticed any of our stuff, but we actually have intro music, and you've got...
My son broke them just last week, but
You
you
got...
might remember them from like a while ago.
You have shades, not shades for our live, not live episode. This is so awesome. Here we go. Here we go.
You've tuned in to COVID Marketing with Brent Kobayashi and Arthur Tutt, the show to support small business not just to survive, but to thrive.
That's right. We are live, not live, with COVID Marketing episode number 55, the week daily show at 11:11 Eastern Standard Time. Geez, I'm messing up my intro because I decided to change things up, but that's okay. So if you have questions on marketing, business, or, well, whatever, let us know in the comments wherever you find folk are seeing this. I am Brent Kobayashi, president of Kobayashi Zeitguys, a marketing agency here in Toronto, Canada. With me is Mr. Arthur Tutt, specialist of the marketing at the KZ or the KZ, depending on which part of the world you happen to be seeing this. Please, if you're seeing this and you're enjoying our show, and I know there's a bunch of you out there that are enjoying our show, tag somebody, share somebody, subscribe so you never miss this. And now, we are live and not live and sorry and not sorry, because this is the way we could have Mr. Jan Keck, founder of Ask Deep Questions, on with us today. Hello, Mr. Jan.
Hello, hello. Oh, hang on. I need to grab my glasses from here because they are pretty broken. I need to find
totally
blue.
Broken.
That's when you have a little kid and they take naps at the time that you want to be on a live show, or you're playing with Lego with them. So thanks for accommodating me and changing this up for like a pre-recorded episode.
Dude, I knew that I needed to have you on this show. Had Natalie on Jesus, feels like years ago. And of course it was you. And fun fact, Arthur, Maggie, everybody that's out there, I used to tell Mr. Jan Keck here very frequently that it's all his fault. Every time, got the shades on, got the funny things going, got whatever it was that was going on that was allowing me to actually express fully on camera, be comfortable on camera, because way back when I worked with you, and you just knew how to get people out of themselves, get them in touch with themselves, get them actually authentically communicating with themselves, and do it on camera. That was your thing. And I love how you evolved from that point to where you are now. So maybe just give us a quick idea of what's going on in your life.
Yeah. So what I used to do, the way we met originally, was Brent was part of a little promotional video that me and my business partner were recording, where we made him dance. And I think Brent was one of the easiest people to make dance, but also maybe the person that we least expected to dance in that video. And then, yeah.
The ballerina.
I know.
Do we still have video evidence of this moment?
I think it's still online. It should be findable somewhere. Mm-hmm. I'll let your audience try to find that. I'm not going to give any more clues.
The Kobayashi code. Love it.
Exactly. But so what my background was, I used to run this video marketing agency, and one core mission that I feel we had is helping business owners, entrepreneurs connect with their audience through the power of video. And the best way happens when you can be yourself, when you can show your personal brand that is you as a person online, and it will be the second best thing to meeting in person. And a couple of years later, now I facilitate these deep, meaningful conversations for people that help them connect without video, but in person, with a deck of cards that I originally had created that has deep questions on them. And now I feel like I have to tell the third part of that story. Now that we can't meet face-to-face, I've been experimenting with many, many different ways on how to translate that magic that happens at the events that I do in person to the online world. And I found that there's so much that can be done to really make people feel something, feel connected, that is not just sitting in front of a screen and looking at each other, but actually feeling connected at the end.
Yeah. And so with your ability that I observed, which was to really dig into a subject, like I saw that with the agency, I saw that with Ask Deep Questions, and really research it, ideate on it to sort of discover what it is about this that I can make valuable for people, and put it maybe into a bit of a process to actually understand it, to research it, to actually get into and do little tests to say, I've got some theories and ideas, let me do a test to see how does that work out, and then learn from it and continue on. It was like second to none. You are literally, I actually talk to people and I say, this is the guy you need to model as far as this sort of thing. So when we were thinking about doing this, and we were thinking about, how do you take some powerful real life events that you might be doing in your business, how do you translate that into a virtual format where, quite frankly, it's hard. And I think some people are just like, yeah, we'll just do Zoom and we'll talk, and then I'll present some stuff, maybe I'll put some PowerPoint slides up, and people will get what they get out of it. I almost feel like there's a feeling of, it is what it is, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, why don't we start at the top? Like, I guess the first thing is, why should even somebody bother? Like, I'll wait until I can have an event in real life.
Yeah, I actually want to try a little test. Hold on, I need to write something down for this and hope that my camera will show it correctly. So there's, when this pandemic first hit, I used to believe, and really strongly believe and share this with everyone, that technology is one of the biggest obstacles in helping us connect with each other. And usually when I do an in-person event or host a conversation, the first thing we do is we turn off our cell phones, we put them in, like we create these sleeping bags out of envelopes, we put them in, we seal them up with like a wax seal so we can't open them until the end of it, to really show that we will be present for the conversations that we're having. And I completely had to reshift, I guess, the way I was thinking about it. And the first few days I was like, you can't recreate in-person events. Like, no way. How can you be present when you're looking at a screen, when you can't even really make eye contact with someone? But then I remembered this sentence. Let's see if my camera can focus.
It's coming. It's like playing with the focus.
Come on. Hold on. I need to press a button maybe. There we go.
Ooh.
Can you guys read what it says?
Opportunity is nowhere.
Or, hold on. Now it's not focusing anymore. Come on.
We'll get this. This is live, not live, so no problem.
Exactly. There we go. So it's opportunity is nowhere, or what else could you read?
Opportunity is now here.
Opportunity is now here. Exactly. So that's what I remembered, is either you could say, oh, there's no opportunities here, I'm not going to do any events, I'm just going to not serve my community right now, my audience, my clients. Or I could say, okay, there is an opportunity, let me experiment, let me figure out what that could look like if we did find a way to be present with each other through this digital technology that we have available, and see what happens. And the amazing thing that happened is that, first of all, I was able to connect with people that I had not been able to serve, because if you do local events, your audience is local. This kind of helped me kind of grow my audience worldwide. Like, I had people joining from like anywhere from Russia to like Spain and Germany and Italy and Austria and Europe and all over the US and Canada, to my events that usually were only open to people living in Toronto. And then the other thing that happened is that I did a few experiments where I really tried to push the limits of what I've seen people do on like video calls, that made me realize, oh my God, I just felt something that I haven't felt ever on a video call. And I can share like two of those experiments that I ran, because now they're kind of like I use some of the basic principles that I now apply in every single event that I do.
Yeah.
Like that, I
Do
know.
it. Like I'm just like,
Cliffhanger.
yeah.
So the first thing that I did is at one day, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks into the pandemic, I was thinking of all my friends that have touch as their main love language.
That's
Like
me.
exactly, like the people who love getting hugs, who are really great huggers. And I was thinking about the people in my life that I'm like, man, I wish I could give them a hug right now, but I can't, because we are isolating. We can't touch, even if we were in the same like room or space. So let me experiment and run this event where we attempt to do a virtual group hug. And that was as much as I thought. Let's just like do a group hug and figure out how to do it virtually. And I put together a Facebook event. I called it the world's largest virtual group hug, because I like to set goals high, and was even researching what it requires to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. Was a very complicated process and would have taken way too long, because my event was happening 3 days after I posted it. So we ended up only being, I think, 6 people, which was perfect, because it helped, I guess, create this really intimate space where I gave people the option to hug a object in front of their screen. And I told them, you can use a pillow, you can use a blanket, you can use a stuffed animal. And I brought them all up kind of next to me so I can show them to everyone on camera. But then I also had this pack of toilet paper rolls that I just wanted to show as like a joke. Like, you could also hug your toilet paper, as that was all over the web right now. And when I was hugging it, I realized, oh my God, in terms of like the density and like the resistance you would get when you hug a person, this feels the most real. Like the pillow was just getting too small, the blanket was too thin, and the stuffed animal was too small, but the like roll of toilet paper was like the perfect thing. So I started hugging that. Other people had different objects. I played some like cheesy love music in the background and asked people to close their eyes and maybe think of a person that they would like to hug right now. And after about like 2-3 minutes, when the song was over and we opened our eyes, half of us were in tears. And I was surprised first, because I thought this is going to be like a fun event. I originally had scheduled it for 15 minutes. Like, let's get on a Zoom call, play one song, hug the thing, and then say bye. But what ended up happening is us spending another hour just talking about the experience that we just had. And some of the people that were on the call, they live by themselves. They don't have pets. They really are craving that touch right now. And I think just allowing the space to unfold, we connected on such a deep and meaningful level without being in the same space. And I knew at that point that, okay, there's something possible if we use different things. Like the music was a huge part of it, of like really amplifying people's emotions. Like you know it from watching any movie. If the soundtrack is like swelling up, anything can become super epic. Any like boring scene can become super like suspenseful with the right music. So music was like a big part of it, but also just creating that space for people to be real and share kind of what's going on for them.
It's like you're creating a sense of community there.
Yeah, especially exactly. It was not only having people like be ready to have that experience and actually like let go of like crying. This was a group of strangers. They didn't know each other. Like, how easy is it for you to kind of cry in front of a camera when you're talking to strangers? It's not something that most people would feel comfortable to do, but just the way I think I realized I design events in person and online, the biggest thing that I've learned is it creates the psychological safety where people can feel safe to be themselves and to be vulnerable. And that is kind of the thing that I now teach a lot of other people too.
Wow. Okay. So where my mind's going with that is first how closely tied to your mission that is, how ridiculously wonderful. And you know what? The funny thing is, I'm actually not surprised. Not because it's you, Jan. It is just something that would not be in my mind of, okay, let's, I've thought of, you can connect, you can have a conversation on Zoom, and you can just have a conversation. But that's a distant connection from, wait a second, can you have a hug on Zoom? And what does that mean? And how could that be possible? And so, and the reason why, as you've gone through this and said what's happened, I'm not surprised, is because we all know, and this is actually where a lot of the marketing stuff comes from, for sometimes good, sometimes a little bit maybe not so directly good, although I don't necessarily believe good and bad. Anyways, let's not get into philosophy too much, but I'm not surprised, because we are all capable of imagining and connecting. And while our inputs, when I'm in person with you, are strong and powerful, and you can think, well, this input right now across this long distance is distant. It's certainly not what I want. I mean, we've all watched Disney films and cried when Bambi's mom, died. Like we all know how to do this. It's just that we don't think we know how to do this across this kind of connection. And maybe we actually decide we don't want to do this across this kind of connection, because if I can't have it, I don't want it. I think sometimes where we can go. And if we were to pull this around to, so there's the possibility. So the possibility is, yes, you can actually have a hug. There's a reason for amassing toilet paper, other than worried about the apocalypse, and not having enough toilet paper. So once you've got that, as in, stop worrying about whether or not you can have an engaging, interesting connection. That's possible. Now the question is for yourself, like, say if we were to go to a business who's having a training event or doing something, like everybody's doing seminars, right? You've certainly supported events, business events, where, they want people to not just walk around and say, hi, how you doing? What do you do for work? And maybe let's talk about the kids and the weather. So what would you say to anybody who actually wants to hold an event? How would you approach it? You're training people on how to do this. Mm-hmm. Where do you start with something like this?
I think the first question you should ask yourself is, have you talked to your community already? Like, with everything that's going on in this world, have you just opened the conversation and checked in with people? Like, the first thing that I did before I even hosted any events, I just sent out an email to my email list that had one line in it that said, how can I support you right now? And I just had these amazing one-on-one conversations with people that just shared what's going on in their world. And this helped me also understand, okay, what's needed? Do they need me to host workshops right now? Not really. At that time, nobody was thinking of learning a new skill. Everybody was just like, I need to talk to people and feel like I'm not the only one going through this right now. So I started hosting events that just are around facilitating conversations that actually I called, this is a small talk free zone and a COVID talk free zone. Let's spend some time not talking about what's going on in the world and connect on the deep, meaningful questions that allow us to be more vulnerable with each other. And that attracted a whole bunch of people, because, including myself, you would watch the news, you would check the stats, because you're not leaving the house, you're on social media all day. And 90% of the content that was going around was about the pandemic and the news. And oftentimes it was not good news, it was pretty bad news. So you just leave at the end of the day exhausted. So what my audience really needed was this space for them to have conversations about something else, but not the weather, not the virus, and not about work.
Right. So we've talked about it. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording. This is a time of a lot of rapid change. So don't assume that your audience knows, your clientele knows what they want from you, right? Just ask.
Yeah. And
literally connect and have one-on-ones.
Yes. Like I think that anything that happened afterwards, after I did those first conversations and those first few events, was at the end, I always would tell people I'm staying on for a couple more minutes. If anybody wants to share some feedback, some ideas, I would send out a lot of surveys asking people what they're looking to learn, what they're like struggling with. And based on those surveys, I would create something new. And at the end of that, I would ask people, I would send out a new survey. So what are you looking to do next? Now that we've done this part, where do you want us to go next? And through that, I've come up with a series of workshops that really supports people who are already building communities, who are already working with groups of people and helping them just figure out how to bring that magic of their in-person events, of the in-person gatherings to online. And I just shared all my different tips. And the main thing that like the core of what also is my business is you need to facilitate connections for people more than any content. So even my workshops where I'm teaching content, everything that I'm teaching is a technique to help people connect. And the best way for them to learn it is by experiencing it. So if you attend one of my workshops, not only would people learn things, but they also would connect with all the other people. And I've just attended so many other events that are just focusing on like one person talking, doing kind of a lecture style to everyone else. And because I now am trying to leverage technology as much as possible rather than trying to avoid it as I did before, I'm like, okay, what can we do online that we couldn't do in person? And there's a lot of cool things that you can do with the chat, with asking people to share and having them come together from like different groups. And breakout rooms is like, we'll probably chat a little bit more about, because that to me is like the best feature of Zoom, for example.
Okay. So yeah, let's start at the top. So people are coming in. What do you do? How do you break the ice? How do you, like, that's what you do in a live event, right? You somehow get people comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I would say that not a lot of people who do live events even do this. Like even with live events, that was usually my biggest pet peeve, is attending event that doesn't have any activity scheduled for what I call the unofficial start time. So when you host something in person, people sometimes would arrive 15 minutes early. Some of them arrive on time, some arrive 10 minutes late, some 20 minutes late. And you're not actually starting with like your welcome or introduction until, let's say, 15 or 30 minutes after when you said the event was going to start, because they want to make sure that everybody's there. And I think if you can create some kind of activity that helps people engage and gives them the tools to have a conversation with each other and connect in that time, then that's a huge win. Because the way I'm thinking about it, and the same way in a virtual space, is somebody who's super extroverted shows up to an event with, let's say, 100 people, walks in, puts down their coat, finds the first person to talk to, has a conversation, goes to a group, has another conversation, like they're good. But the person who is socially anxious or maybe a lot more introverted, they would just stand at the entrance of the room, look at that crowd and go like, fuck, can I swear on this? I just did. If not, you can bleep it out. But
no, you can swear.
I've been in that situation oftentimes where I'm like looking at the sea of people. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to talk about. So giving people tools, like giving them a conversation starter, or writing something on their name tag, or like beautifying their name tag with kid stickers, which I have lying around here somewhere from my son, is like a really easy task that people can do. And while doing it, the conversations just naturally start and become a lot easier. Yeah.
I think Brent and I actually had a really interesting experience a couple weeks back. We attended the AMA, the American Marketing Association. They were running a virtual event. And I remember some of the feedback afterwards where a lot of people were saying, wow, we actually really enjoyed this being a virtual event. And I remember hearing feedback like, I find in-person events can be very intimidating. Like you said, sometimes you see a group of people and they're already kind of in a circle and you're like, I don't know if I should go in there and like talk to them. It's going to be weird. How do I introduce myself? And there's a lot of like social pressure and social tension. But a lot of people were saying, wow, we really enjoyed the virtual event because I could sit at home, have my glass of wine, but still feel like I was a part of this event and connect with people and feel like I was okay to like share and open up.
Yeah, the introverts actually were saying, wow. Like when they went into the breakout room, which we'll get into in a second, they're like, wow, because there's only 4 or 5 of us and I'm in a group now I can have this conversation rather than being like, oh, there's a group. How do I become part of that group? I guess I won't. I'll just sort of stand here until somebody wanders by and picks me up. So now, the sticker stuff, love that stuff. I've been to events that have it. I love all of that sort of introductory type of thing that allows people to engage. But how do you translate that to online?
So online, the interesting thing is that you don't need to cover this like half an hour, 45-minute period of like before the event starts and by the time the latecomers have joined. I've noticed, especially now that we've been in this situation for a couple of weeks, usually after like 5 minutes, everybody's there. And then there's maybe a few latecomers who come like 10 minutes late, but that's usually it. And I even tell people when they attend my event that after 10 minutes, we might not let you in, like we'll lock the meeting room. So to really make sure that they are on time. And you only have to cover a much shorter time. And usually like some things that I do is, number one, I play music in the background because again, the silence, the awkward silence when you enter a room and everybody's just quiet and you just hear some keyboard typing.
Brilliant.
I don't know, it makes me really nervous. Like anytime I've entered, I'm like, is it okay to unmute myself? Can I write hello in the chat? Like maybe I'll just turn my video off again and wait until people start. Like that's usually what happens is people, if they don't have the instructions right away, or at least some music to help them feel more comfortable, if you use the right track, they will start to disengage right away. So whenever people come in, what I do is, if it's a smaller group, I mention people by name. Hey, Arthur, nice to see you. Hey, Brent, give me a little wave as they're coming in. And then I would ask them to engage in a question, usually in the chat. Like the chat is a great way to have everybody engage at the same time and not make it overwhelming with everybody just trying to talk at the same time. So I would ask a simple question like, hey, what brought you here today? Or like, what's something that made you happy this week? Anything that is like positive and easy for people to answer. Like, what location are you calling in from? Which is one that a lot of people use, because what it does is whenever you see somebody calling in from the same location, even if it's like 2 people from Canada, everybody else is from the States, it immediately feels you more, makes you feel more connected. You feel that you're not alone anymore. And there's 2 things that happen, or that I like to make happen in the first 15 minutes of a call. Is I want people to feel like they're not alone, and I want them to feel seen and heard. And the fastest, like using the chat is one way to make people feel heard if everybody participates. But the other thing is using breakout rooms. And if you give people a conversation starter and tell them the person with the longest hair goes first, or something like that. So they don't even spend time in like chit chat in the beginning. It's like, okay, you have the longest hair. Okay, you go first. And they share their answer to the question, and they go around, and everybody has an equal amount of time. Every single person, even if you have hundreds of people attending, will have a chance to speak, feel heard, and then they'll be much more engaged for anything else that happens afterwards. So even if you're teaching something, I highly encourage everyone to use the breakout room feature. And like groups of like 4 or 5 people, give each one a minute. That's going to take you 5 minutes, and it will make a huge difference in how people engage afterwards.
Those 2, so listen, you just solved a lot of problems for some of the ones that I've been on, because, they'll have the big room, everybody's there. Obviously, you're not going to have a conversation there. You might have a little bit of a panel kind of thing going on, or a conversation. But the breakout room always starts, and there's usually, well, who starts? Somebody starts to dominate the conversation. Opinions start going. And then there is a little bit, even though it's better for the conversation, there's still a little bit of almost competition in terms of speaking and speaking styles. So there's still a little bit of that introvert, extrovert balance going on there. So I just want to iterate, this is so important for anybody who's doing these events. A timer, a clear way of the person who should start, starts. Longest hair, whatever it happens to be, something. Make it entertaining. It can be on brand or something like that, but not too complicated.
First letter of the alphabet, like with your name, next birthday coming up.
Perfect.
Although that might take some time to figure out. So anything that is quick, yeah.
Okay, good. And then the question with the timer. So 1 minute for each of you to just answer the question or think about the question and say what your thoughts are, and then have the conversation for a little bit after that. And then the first person that goes or somebody keep track with time, and you actually have the time. One of the things I did notice with the breakout rooms and the ones that I was at, it seemed like the people who were managing the show really did not have a very good sense of the time that it would take to have the conversations that were happening. So because people are in the breakout room and you're just not there, time goes slower than when you're in the middle of a conversation. Mm-hmm. And so I actually found that really understanding what's happening was super important. And I'd almost suggest that I think you can go into a breakout room as the host and just pop in, get a sense with how things are going, like you would if it were a real breakout room.
I think that is something that I am a little bit split on. Like, I totally get if you not have experienced what it feels like being in a breakout room, that you should check in with people, especially if let's say you have the room open for like 15 minutes and they have to do a deeper discussion or activity. But oftentimes when I run my breakout rooms, they're only like 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And the conversations that I have them talk about are quite private or intimate. So I actually don't feel like there's any place for me to be part of that conversation. And even like just showing up and silently being there is not really aligned with what I want people to share. Like I don't want them to feel like I'm listening in on their conversation. I wouldn't do that in person either.
Gotcha.
But I think it's super important, especially if you want to run breakout rooms, to be part of an event that uses breakout rooms, because you first want to know how it feels like as the participant, because then you can also explain it so much better to, hey, there's going to be a timer on the top right. If you have any questions, there's a button at the bottom that says ask for help. If you click it, I get notified and I can come and check on you. Like once you're in, if you were in it and you play around with it, just like inviting a couple of friends to say, hey, I want to try out these breakout rooms. Do you have like a couple of minutes for me to test it out? And just play around with it until you get comfortable before you host something.
Nice. So you've talked about, I've seen it on your content that you publish, Zoom fatigue.
Zoom fatigue.
Yes.
Zoom fatigue is the lightest term that they've come up with. I've also heard getting Zoom bum or Zoom butt because you sit on your butt too much. Zoom gloom, you turn into a zombie. I'm zoomed out. Like there's so many terms for what basically means you're now sitting more in front of the computer than you were before, and it's exhausting. And there's some really cool, interesting research that shows why it's so exhausting. It has to do with like two things. One is it seems like we're connecting, like if we close our eyes, we would have a phone call, we're connecting with each other. But when we look at the screen, we're not. We're actually not making eye contact with each other. Either you're looking at the camera and now you feel like I'm making eye contact with you, or I'm looking at my screen and now I'm looking at you, but you're not looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that dissonance is what is tiring. And there's like a few tips that I can give as well that help with that. But that was kind of eye-opening when I read some of the research that came out.
Just on that note, I've had a thought in the back of my head of, wouldn't it be cool if like the camera could actually get like be like in the screen, like in the middle of the screen, and then you could actually look at each other. But maybe that's just like
somebody's got to be working on that. Somebody please work on that.
I've actually seen people who kind of have this tiny little camera that they dangle from a string, so it's like in the middle of the screen. But the problem is it's still not the same because you don't have the same thing. And even if I look at the middle of the screen, it would have to be like in your eyes, perfectly lined up for it to work. So
okay. So I've thought about that. I just got to mention very quickly, my idea is, because you actually, the technology is getting really cool where I can real time, if my computer's not good enough, but I can have a live cat on my head and I can move around. The Snapchat filter can do this, right? So you can actually have augmented reality, in other words. I feel like somebody's got to be working on the ability to have my eyes look into the camera while I'm looking down at you. Like it'll actually change my where I'm looking. Deep fake, whatever technology that shifts my visuals so that we now cannot have Zoom fatigue. But okay, sorry, that was number one. Number two.
When you get Zoom fatigue, do Zumba. Bad joke.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Moving on.
No Zumba.
Yeah.
Moving on quickly.
Yes. Actually, Jan, I can't hear you anymore.
We lost him.
We lost him.
It was just such a bad joke. He had to bail.
He's out.
Hello.
There you are. You're back.
Okay. I think I might have hit something on my keyboard by accident. So that's like a perfect segue for sharing another experience that I did. That was the second most impactful one I did on Zoom. And that is now the one that I do almost every single event, which is an eye gazing activity, because the way we connect, I often say babies have it figured out. What do? They do two things. They smile at you and they make eye contact. And that's how they try to connect with any adult. And I feel like those are the things that we need to recreate. And smiling, of course, is the easier one in this kind of virtual setting. But eye contact is the tricky thing, because it's kind of like a seesaw. Like only one person can be on the top and the other person's at the bottom. Like we always try to catch up. And then somebody told me about this thing, because Zoom has a tiny little lag. If you really quickly look in the camera and then back at your screen, you can catch yourself making eye contact with yourself for like a millisecond, which is like a fun thing to experiment with. But what I do at my events is
that's freaky.
I know everybody's probably going to do this right after they watch this. But what I do at my events is I put a few people as a spotlight, like big on the screen, or I have a few people volunteer, and they look at the camera while everybody else makes eye contact with them, like looking at them. So if you're looking at my screen right now, you probably think that I'm talking to you. So if I laugh or I just send you some good energy, you would feel like you're receiving that, like I'm looking at you. And I have to pretend that I'm talking to you while looking at the lens. And it feels very strange if you've experienced that. And then we would switch, so everybody gets a chance to like look at the lens and also look at somebody else's eyes. And it's so simple, and paired with music, it can be really impactful. Like I think I've almost like fallen in love with people just because of that activity, and they were pretending to look at they were just looking at the camera and not at me. So making sure that when you are talking to your audience, that you are looking at the camera, you kind of split your time between looking at people's faces and the camera, so they can feel like you're connecting with them a lot more.
So if you've got a brand that is sort of like a community brand, you know, you've got a restaurant or something else like that, like something where you are connecting with people. It may not work quite the same if you've got, I don't know, a different kind of brand, depending on what people are going for. But it actually makes sense to have a group, a small group, a group of, 50 people, 100 people, 20 people, whatever it happens to be. And you're going to go for an event like this. I think that's brilliant. So, hey, we're going to do something fun now. Give a little bit of explanation, and let's do this thing. And it builds community. It actually, I think everybody will be laughing. It'll be a little bit of a funny thing that you've done. Love it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned fun too, because fun is a huge part of any events that I do, because they really help break down some of the barriers. So I'll share one more quick idea that of something that I did now a few times as people are coming in on a call, because they all drop in kind of separately, is I play a bunch of movie soundtracks, and I just have people guess what movie it is or what TV show it is. And depending again on the audience, like we did, I co-hosted a team building workshop last week where the team was coming in, and it was a lot of millennials. So we did a lot of like TV shows and movies that I knew they would kind of be familiar with, and just have them guess in the chat, like what song is that, or what movie is that from? And they had a ton of fun just getting started right away with something that is interactive.
And that's something you can do like in every single event. We did an event recently that was a dentistry event. Absolutely, that would have been great to just sort of get people actually engaged, and their minds will start to open up for the content that even if you just go to content drop and it's more of a lecture series, you just get people a little bit more comfortable. And I actually, now that you said that, in between speakers, maybe have people stretch, maybe people do this, do that sort of thing, just to get people feeling like they're part of this, rather than, you know what, this is like a documentary I'm watching on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Like the faster you can have people connect with each other, and also kind of show that, like, here's a bunch of humans that are watching something together. This is the shared experience that we're having, rather than talking to a screen. The better.
Yeah, and you actually start getting people saying it's okay to chat. You start to open up the ability to actually start typing and communicating and all of that with the event. That'll bring up questions that you can have for your speakers that come up. If I'm thinking more of a little bit more of a traditional event in that case, but you're working to break the ice. You're working to get the engagement. You're working to have things be different again than just the straight up boring seminar.
Totally agree.
Okay, so we only have a couple minutes. Is there anything that you'd like to share? Like, somebody wants to hold an event. Let's not necessarily go to like it's a personal, private. Like let's go to their business. I want to hold an event for my clientele, for my community, for my potential clients, whatever it might be. I'm going to be dropping some knowledge, because maybe that's the reason why they're coming here. You know, in this industry, this is what's happening. This is what's important for you, or whatever it happens to be. But it's an event. People are coming. People are gathering. Is there anything that you think they should know? Is there a way that you end it off? Is there a way that you facilitate?
I think there's lots of things. If I had to like just share one, the most important thing, it's use breakout rooms. Like have people connecting with each other rather than just with you, because that's how they will get so much more value also from showing up. Because oftentimes when you go to a live event, you're not necessarily there just to listen to a speaker. You're there to network, to meet some other people. So make sure that you're not withholding that from people.
Yeah. Okay. Give them that opportunity to network. Give them the opportunity to connect with people.
And if you facilitate it, if you actually give them the conversation starters and like do maybe 2-3 rounds where they get to meet at least like 3 to 5 people, then you're even kind of fast forwarding that whole connection building that would happen in a real person event, where they have to like walk up to a group and do some small talk and then get to the interesting stuff on Zoom, because of breakout rooms, the way they work is you skip that whole part. You're like, I'm in a room, this is the question, go. And immediately people are connecting. And that's I think what people come for.
Fantastic. So Jan, how do people find you?
So the easiest place that is the easiest to type is if you go to askdeepquestions.com. That will actually put you on my personal website and also the page where you can look up the cards that we didn't talk much about today. But if you go there, you can find out about that. And then I have a bunch of these workshops on how to facilitate events that are also on there. If you just go to the store on the website, you'll find them there.
Fantastic. And I really highly recommend your Ask Deep question cards. If you are doing a real in-person event, business, whatever it is, these cards are a fantastic way to break the ice, to get people talking more than just the small talk. Doesn't have to be the big talk, but you'll actually get people connecting and people actually enjoying the fact that they're human and they're in the place together with other people. So absolutely. We'll drop that in the links in the show. And Jan, I know you need to go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, this was such a pleasure.
Okay. Yes, such a pleasure. Now, Jan, we actually have an outro. So we have an intro and an outro. I have to explain this to every one of my guests, and I'm so proud of this. So we have this intro and outro because one of our viewers who does this kind of stuff was like, I'm going to give you an intro. He gave us 2 intros to choose from, and we decided one is going to be the outro.
That's awesome. I watched your very first show, like the very first one. So yep. It's amazing to see how it has grown, and now we have intros and outros.
Evolved.
Co-hosts.
We got so another thing that we do, which I think you'll love because of how you think, is we actually decided, you know how everybody celebrates the 50th show, which by the way was recently, and the 100th show and all that kind of stuff. We decided we're going to celebrate prime numbers, and every prime number we have to go 1 level up.
Nice.
We had a prime number and we forgot to give away the book. Arthur, we forgot to give away the book. We were going to give away.
It just means next time we have the opportunity to give away 2.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do 2 things. Okay. So anyways, we got all sorts of stuff. It's become a culture thing. Maggie usually screams in the chat, outro, cut. Like she's
stop,
a great
guys,
producer.
stop.
Yes. All right. So we're going to go into the outro, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Here we go. It's a little bit different mood.
You've tuned in to COVID Marketing with Brent Kobayashi and Arthur Tutt, the show to support small business not just to survive, but to thrive.
That's right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us on episode number 55 with our wonderful Mr. Jan Keck of AskDeepQuestions.com. Jan, once again, thank you for joining us. I'm so happy to have you on board here. So happy to have you join us. And again, thank you. It's all your fault that this is happening.
All right.
I think you need to claim it.
I'll come back for episode 511. That's a prime number, I hope.
Whoa, you just pulled that out of your hat? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after that, we go to Arthur saying,
let's cut it.
And he stops recording. Go ahead.
From the live stream?
Yeah, you can. I know. Usually that. So what happens is they keep on recording for a second. So what happens is
he's like, cut.
I know. What happens is he says, cut it. And after that, we actually just stop the show, but we keep chatting, but we keep recording the show and we keep the live stream going. And then we chill out a little bit with people who have joined us live and just talk. So it's not quite so hyped up or whatever. We're not trying to get people through a show. So it's kind of what we call the post show.
Nice.
So that's the end, and then we have an end after we stop recording or stop live, and then we actually end. There's a lot that goes on, but you need to go.
Yes,
I
I
thank
have
you.
another call, but this was amazing. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited where the show will be in like another few months.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm not stopping. This is too good.
I was gonna say, Jan, we do need your help though for some lighting stuff, especially Brent. We need some work here.
Yeah, if I'm not at home, if I'm at the office, I'm less pink and the lighting's a little bit better. We'll get there on the next prime number.
Sounds good.
All right.
Just let me know.
Love you. Take
Okay,
care.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Good to meet you.